I'm James Tully, morning anchor at ABC Action News, and this is the Rebound Tampa Bay podcast. In this episode, we're going to tackle a slightly lighter topic, however, one that's very important to people, and one that I've been missing dearly since this pandemic started: sports. They're about to restart. The NHL, Major League Baseball, this week, they're getting underway. And I'm bringing on our sports anchor, Kyle Berger, to talk about the things that he's seen and observed with practices and how these teams are going to do something that's unprecedented in the history of their sports, and that's restart or start under very different circumstances. Here's my conversation with our sports anchor, Kyle Berger. All right, Kyle, so it's going to be a very weird sports season coming up. I guess we could say the restarting of several sports seasons in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so we, Bucks, Rays, and the Lightning. Yesterday, I went to the Rays practice. They had their first simulated game inside Tropicana Field. It's a weird feeling. We're watching Major League players, but no fans. You can hear everything from the crack of the bat, the leather, the players, talking junk to each other. It's actually kind of cool. But the simulated game was it was interesting. It was about a 6-inning game. They rotated 4 pitchers, only three or four hitters on each team, and ghost runners. So they're kind of getting back into the swing of things. They actually wore real uniforms, which is kind of neat to see. They're finally getting closer to baseball. Rays, they had another simulated game today, and they get back to regular season ball July 24th, I believe. The Rays season opener and home opener. They'll host the Jays for 2 games, and the Braves come to town. And then from there, it's a gauntlet of a schedule for the Rays once they get back into the swing.
It's going to be a sprint to the finish, just a 60-game schedule that they're going with. But you mentioned all the things that you heard when you at least were in attendance. You were at Tropicana Field and you saw the simulated game. Maybe that gives us kind of a sneak peek into what it's going to be like when we're watching it on TV a little bit. I noticed this with UFC fighting. I was never into UFC before, but it was the only game in town. No pun intended. It was the only thing on only live sports for a while that we had. And without fans, you heard things like them talking trash to each other. You heard what was going on in the corner between the fighter and the trainer. In baseball, what kind of things did you hear? You said you heard them talking to each other, and that's a whole new experience for people on watching it on TV, right?
Yeah, you hear a little bit of trash talk. You hear them running bases. You hear them stepping on the bag. You hear what the coaches are relaying to the batter. It's interesting. And then I don't know if they're going to pump in any crowd noise at the games or not, but they're playing music in the background. You can hear all that. So it's like they're playing Foo Fighters songs. Like, I love Foo Fighters, and you can hear all
you and me both. You and me both. We're a dying breed. We're getting too old for that stuff now.
But it was great. I guess I'm one of the lucky ones that gets to be in the building to see this happening. But
so Kyle, you said they played music in the background during the entire game?
During the simulated game, yeah. It wasn't pumped full volume, but there's you had some ambient noise going on.
That's interesting.
When there's no fans in the building. So I don't know if that's something they'll do. I have a bunch of friends who cover the Braves up in Atlanta, where I'm from, and they had a simulated game, and they said they still played the up the bat, songs for individual players, the walk-up songs. So maybe that's something they'll incorporate even with no fans to get it feeling like a real game.
Well, we're talking sports here on the Rebound podcast this week, and it's part of the new normal as a sports fan. There's some things where you just really not having fans or anybody in attendance makes a huge difference. WrestleMania, of course, was supposed to be in Tampa this year. And Kyle, I guess that was right around the time that you got down here to ABC Action News and joined the team. I watched WrestleMania at home. They did it. It was weird. I'm not
in a Buccaneers tight end. Won the belt.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The new Bucs tight end, Rob Gronkowski, was there, but they did it in an empty arena, no fans, and it was weird, because pro wrestling is something where you really need a crowd. Those guys play to the crowd. The energy of the crowd feeds a certain match or whatever else. But in baseball, football, hockey, yeah, crowd drives it too. But I don't know, from your perspective, it's just something we're going to have to deal with, right?
Yeah, it is. Baseball, when you think of home field, home court advantage, baseball, you don't really get that, I don't think. You don't hear the crowd going wild when there's I guess you do, but I think hitters kind of phase that out. Football, you definitely get that. for the visiting team trying to hear a snap count. I think you can get that in hockey where the crowd's more on top of the action. But yeah, this is uncharted waters for everybody. I think it levels the playing field for sure in those sports that you would have a home court or home field advantage. But baseball, I don't think you really have that as much. I mean, you have the away team and the home team. Last at bat, you have that as far as home and away. But crowd noise, and same thing in golf. It doesn't matter. Basketball in Orlando restarting here really soon. Evens the playing field for those teams that have some really loud crowds in the NBA. So yeah, it's going to play a part in those sports. Baseball, I don't think it would play a part as much.
Well, let's talk about some of the other ramifications of the pandemic on sports. As you watched last night in the simulated game, it's not just no crowd. There's a much different order of operations when it comes to playing the actual game of baseball, because now they have to basically change the ball out. Is it every pitch or every time it's hit into play or it touches another player? How are they doing that?
Yeah.
That's going to be a whole different process to see play out when these games are broadcast too.
Yeah, changing the balls, that's one of the new rules. There's no licking of the fingers for the pitchers who like to get that moisture on there. Instead of licking fingers, they're allowed to carry a wet rag in their back pocket and pull that out. It just has to have water on it, no sticky, funny stuff.
All right.
So they can get their hands moist. There's no high-fiving, no spitting, no chest, no home run celebrations, no brawling. So
well, you can tell them that. Don't they normally tell them no brawling anyway? These guys know they're going to get suspended.
Now it's more of a safety. You're not going to get your nose broken. Now you can get COVID.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Yeah, no brawling.
Of course.
Stay away.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, so we're now talking about all these sports resetting and restarting in Tampa. Let's talk about what maybe some insight. Kyle, are there any plans to bring fans in with any of the 3 sports that are restarting here in the next month?
Okay, we'll start with the NHL and the Lightning. They won't be playing Amalie Arena anyway. There'll be no fans here. They're instead going to have 2 hub cities. The Eastern Conference teams will be in Toronto and the Western Conference teams in Edmonton. And no fans will be allowed in those games when the NHL restarts. So, but when you come locally in Tampa, in Tropicana Field in St. Pete, initially there'll be no fans for the baseball games. It may change. I mean, it's like a weekly thing with this COVID. So that may change when things get started and if things get better. Same thing with the NFL. It's going to be up to the mayor's discretion of each city if they want fans to be there. Tampa, I don't think will start with fans, but most NFL stadiums, the first 6 to 8 rows will be, tarped off. Well, no one will sit either way, and there'll be advertisement there to kind of make up for that revenue that they would lose. But if they do eventually allow fans, they'll be socially distanced and only a certain number allowed into the stadium, which we don't know what that number is yet.
They're going to go week by week, like you said, and also It's a fluid situation, but they are leaving the door open for it. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, they'll leave the door open to see how it goes. And, it's different in every city as well. I mean, Buffalo, New York may obviously have maybe less cases, a small city than we do here in Tampa. But I think it's a good idea with the NFL tarping off the first 6 to 8 rows and trying to make some of that money back and put advertisement there, because those first 6 to 8 rows are on your TV screen when you're watching a game. So good idea there to try to get some of that money back.
Didn't even cross my mind. So it's going to be an interesting year for the Tampa Bay Rays back to baseball. 60-game season last year. As many of us remember, they made quite a run in the playoffs. They nearly took out the eventual American League champion Houston Astros. They've got as good a shot. I mean, it's one of those seasons, Kyle, where talk sports just for a second here. Anything is really possible with teams, especially the ones that were playoff or fringe playoff teams from a year ago.
I really like this Tampa Bay Rays team in a short season. 60 games. I mean, their pitching staff from 1 to 8, they're good. I mean, they have 3 guys that could win a Cy Young Award with Blake Snell, Morton, and Glass now. And then you throw in Ryan Yarbrough, who pitched a simulated game yesterday. I think he went 4 innings, no runs, a hit, and 7 strikeouts. And he's a really good back-end starter. And there's not really a stud hitter in this lineup. They're all really good players, from Yandy Diaz to Adames to Austin Meadows, the outfielder who actually hasn't been seen since last Friday at practice. So they can't really tell why a player is there or not there. But he's been one of the guys we haven't seen in a while. But he's I think a sleeper candidate for an AL MVP. He's that good. I mean, he's going to be he could hit for 400 in a 60-game season.
Mm-hmm.
But it's wild. I mean,
they're a sum of all parts team. That's what they were last year. They're better together. When they're all when they're all clicking and playing well, they're very hard to beat last year.
The Rays, and they always do some quirky things. Like last year, they started with the opener, like a closer, but they have an opener pitch 2 innings, and they bring their starter in to go even further. So they do unconventional things, and it wins, and they're fun to watch. They're a good group of guys. Kevin Kiermaier, another guy I didn't mention, who's been one of the cornerstone guys for this team, but it's going to be a good season once we get this thing rolling with the
Once
Rays.
we get it rolling, fingers crossed, we keep it rolling. What are some of the ramifications here? What are some of the plan Bs in case players do test positive? You know, the NBA is playing in that bubble in Orlando. It doesn't really pertain to us so much here in the Bay Area, but talking about the Rays and baseball for the time being here, what do they have in place? What are the plans they have in place?
Their temperature check when they walk in every day. I'm not sure exactly how often they get tested. It's very often that they do get tested. But if you do, have no symptoms, but you're showing a positive case, you're quarantined for 14 days, which is the case in Atlanta with Freddie Freeman, who was tested positive, so he'll be out for some time. And we're seeing guys drop out, left and right. Again, I mentioned Atlanta. Again, Nick Markakis was the most recent one. And Mike Trout with the Angels, he hasn't ruled it out yet, but he's very cautious with this, and he's the best player in the game.
Yeah, he's hesitant to even start. And you might see more guys drop out too because they're just like you said, being overly cautious. Does it have to be 14 days? Because in a 60-game season, you could lose a guy in vital parts of it.
Yeah, you lose them for up to 2 weeks, which that's I guess the CDC guidelines when they say you get the virus, and that's how long
it is. You're all right, but I wasn't sure if it was different at all, and if Major League Baseball has any kind of exemption. Yeah, you have to go through 2 negative tests to get allowed back. So I guess after the 14 days, you get tested. You have to have 2 negatives, and then they allow you back in. All right, and I'm sure much the same with hockey and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Turning our attention there, they were having an excellent season when the regular season was suspended the first time around. I think they were second in the conference. The Lightning have had a very good team, and they've contended for the last several years. They restart, and it's like a tournament style. That's what they're doing, Kyle. Very interesting. Explain that to us a little bit. Yeah, so they're having a handful of teams. I think the top 2 teams in each conference, or top 4 teams in each conference, they're already in the playoffs. They're just kind of playing for seeding. And then the rest, I think it's 8 teams that are left on each side, they're fighting to get in. So the top 8 teams in each conference will then be seeded for the postseason. And then from there on, we'll have much like your regular Stanley Cup playoff, 7-game series all the way to the Cup. So, it's going to be a fun year for the Lightning because they were the 2nd seed. They were really hot coming into this. And then everything shut down. They reopened a few weeks ago, slowly bringing back players for skates and doing some drills, 6 players on the ice at a time. And then several Lightning players tested positive for coronavirus, and they shut down for some time. They haven't gotten back quite yet, but they should be getting back pretty soon because there's the NHL and the NHLPA finally agreed. I got a couple key dates of when they're going to restart and get this thing rolling again. July 26th, that's when all the teams will leave for the hub cities. August 1st is the date when they want to start play. So August 1st is the date. They could delay that depending on how things are looking, but that's the start date for them, August 1st in Toronto and Edmonton. It's going to happen fast, and then I guess baseball is just a week before that. So this is going to get rolling, fingers crossed, like I said, that it can go off without a hitch. There'll probably be some challenges along the way, but it seems like there's at least some safety nets in place, Kyle. Yeah, there is. And I don't know if we're going to talk some Bucks or not, but obviously they've been the big story here as well. I did save the best for last because leave it to, in a year when it feels like anything can happen, the Bucks go ahead and go out and sign a legendary quarterback to take over under center in Tom Brady. Tom Brady gets perhaps one of the best tight ends of his generation. His good buddy Rob Gronkowski signs with the Bucks. If there was ever a year for these starved Bucks fans, one of the biggest playoff droughts in all the NFL, and really not a whole lot positive to speak of since the 2002 season when they won the Super Bowl for the Bucks. Here you go, Kyle. This is the year. Unfortunately, at this point, you know, they're probably not going to get the chance to go in the stadium and watch Tom Brady, at least at the beginning of the season.
Wouldn't that be the luck of Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans?
Feels like it.
Greatest season of all time, potentially.
You
can't see it in person.
Highest expectations for a season in franchise history. You know, we were talking about, I had Paul LeGrone on a little while ago. We kind of made the comment, like, if you're in the Bucs front office, and I'm sure you've spoken to some people in the front office, what a deflating thing it was. I used the wrong word there, didn't I? With Tom Brady and deflating. What a bummer it was, because you signed Tom Brady not just to be your star quarterback. You signed him for marketing. You signed him to sell tickets, and they can't right now. That's the tough part. That's a real tough part.
Yeah, and the expectation is through the roof of this team. And it's funny, like, I came from Alabama where I covered Nick Saban a lot, and expectation is not a word that he ever wanted to talk about. And it's funny because Bruce Arians is the exact opposite. He loves these high expectations. Like, he welcomes them, but knows day in and day out you still have to put your work in to achieve those expectations. And yeah, this team, they're not afraid. They know. I mean, it's Super Bowl or bust for this team, and they have this 2-year window with Brady, and with Brady has these weapons that he's never had before. Like in New England, he had the Edelmans and the Chris Hogans and those guys that are just these good route runners, but he's never had the guys.
He had late round picks and guys that football wasn't even their first sport. Giant receivers. Right. Yeah.
The only guy he had was Randy Moss. And that year, I mean, Brady went nuts. His numbers were incredible. And now he has a guy like that. I'm not saying Evans and Moss is one of the greatest ever, but he has a guy like Mike Evans where he can throw the ball downfield. Like, they're going to be taking these risk it or biscuit plays that Bruce Arians likes to call going deep. And Godwin's a mold of a player like an Edelman, who's more of that possession type receiver. And then, of course, you have all those tight ends. And they're going to be a good team, good fun, another fun team. It's a great year for Tampa Bay sports.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right, and that's part of what we want to do here on the episode today is just get you ready for the sports season, how it's going to be different, what you can look forward to, because I think we all need a little bit of that extracurricular in our lives right now, and sports are set to come back. You'll be able to watch them on your TV at home. And with any luck, Kyle, knock on wood, all three teams here in the Bay Area are gonna have a really good season, whatever form that season takes.
Yeah, no, it is. And sometimes it is better watching the game on your front of your TV because you can see everything. I mean, sometimes you go to an NFL game, you're up in the nosebleed seats, you can't see what's going on. Sometimes it's better to be at home and watch it, get all the camera angles, get the replay, especially if you're a fantasy football player like me.
I would, and me as well. I would never advocate against going to Raymond James Stadium to see the Bucs in person, but I will tell you, I enjoy watching football at home almost as much as I do in the stands at Raymond James Stadium. I can kick back a little bit. The beers are cheaper, and I can pause the game if I have to use the bathroom and not wait in line. So there are positives.
Flip the channel and watch your other fantasy players on the other.
That's right. That's right. Any other observations, Kyle? I mean, these guys, whether it's hockey or baseball, you've got a chance to see them both up close. They haven't played for a while. Talk about a weird extended offseason in the middle of a season. How'd they look? What did you see when you observed them?
Okay, when you say the Bucs haven't played in a while, they have played. They do the secret practices over at Berkeley Prep.
Yes.
We get helicopter shots of those guys.
But when it comes to hockey and baseball, they shut their season down. Okay, I know where you're going with that. Yeah. They had to shut their season down in the middle, and then you have this extended layoff. Might be a little rusty. Not to mention there was a shutdown in the middle of all that too, so it was hard to get out and do any kind of workouts with other players.
Yeah, especially the hockey guys. There's nowhere around here to play hockey. There's no ice you can just go to.
No.
And this is for the players that we talked to, they said this is the longest they've been off skates. And most of these guys are born with skates on their feet in Canada or wherever they're from, where that's all they do is hockey. And basically, some of the hockey guys, the Lightning guys, they bought rollerblades, and they would rollerblade around downtown Tampa to try to keep a little bit of that muscle memory. And it's different, but it's the best that they've got. And some teams, the Buccaneers, they sent basically weight rooms to their individual players. So they hooked them up with all really good weights and whatever bands or whatever they need to do in their garage.
Pays to be an NFL player, doesn't it? Get your own home gym delivered to you. That's nice.
That's exactly what the Bucks were doing.
Yeah, why not? Why not? All right, well, we'll see how things shape up, and you take care of yourself, Kyle. You're out there on the beat. Anything you're working on here coming up you want to tease?
Yeah, let's see. Actually, on Monday, I'm doing a story up here in Pasco County. There's the recreation soccer. I think it's Florida Premier FC, and they're like 16-year-old and younger. I was trying to line up a story with that group of players about how they're getting back into the swing of things. And then the coach called me, and it was Martin Gramatica, former Bucks kicker, happens to be the coach.
That's excellent.
So that's a story I got from Monday. We'll talk about Martin, about how he's from Argentina, grew up playing soccer, talk about how he's left the NFL several years ago, but now he's a soccer coach. And just talk with him about how he's adjusting to that and how he's keeping his players safe in a sport that's pretty physical sport up close. So we'll get Martin Gramatica, get his take on that.
I do remember the Automatica Gramatica for sure, and those days of great Bucks kicking hopefully return soon as well. Kyle Berger, check him out, abcactionnews.com/sports for his stories. You have done a really nice job throughout this whole process finding those feature stories to bring there, and that's right in your wheelhouse, Kyle, so keep it going. Please subscribe to the Rebound Tampa Bay podcast on Apple and Stitcher, and watch videos of the podcast on the ABC Action News mobile app and streaming news channel. And know that as we continue to rebound here in Tampa Bay, there are steps you can take to find help for your family. Visit abcactionnews.com/rebound for more. I'm James Tully. Thanks for listening.